Մեծարգո Պյոտր Սվիտալսկիի մամլո ասուլիսը։ Մեծարգո պարոն դեսպան, շնորհակալություն մեզ մոտ հյուրընկալվելու համար։ Մեծարգո պարոն դեսպան, հուլիսի 1-ից սկսվել են Հայաստան Եվրամիություն համապարփակ եւ ընդլայնված գործընկերության համաձայնագրի ժամանակավոր կիրարկումը, որով փաստորեն կյանքի պիտի կոչվեն 80%-ը դրույթների եւ հուլիսի Եվրախորհրդանը քվեարկությամբ հավանություն տվեց համաձայնագրին։ Ինչպիսին է ձեր գնահատականը ընդհանուր process-ի ընթացքին եւ Հայաստանում կատարված վերջին փոփոխությունների լույսի ներքո ձեր գնահատմամբ այս փուլում որոնք են այն առաջնահերթ քայլերը, որ պետք է կատարվեն։
Thank you for this opportunity to meet you, dear friends from the media community. Thank you to the Media Center for hosting this conference. I thought it might be useful indeed to talk about our relations, our work as the European Union in Armenia before we adjourn for low activity period. I wouldn't call it vacation because I know that Armenians are now very deep in the working mode, but I think it would be useful to talk about the current issues on our agenda. Before I reply to your questions, I wanted to express my gratitude to the Armenian people, ordinary Armenians, for the recognition of the work that we are doing here in Armenia. The European Union conducts regularly a survey of the perception of the European Union in the Eastern neighborhood countries. And the results of this survey concerning Armenia are really very, very satisfactory. To quote just a few figures, 70% of people in Armenia trust the European Union. That's an amazing figure, in particular if you compare with other partners of Armenia. The trust in the European Union in 2017 increased by 5%, while, for instance, trust in Euro-Asian Economic Union has declined and is now at a level of 48%. 80% of Armenians feel that relations with the European Union are good. 69% of Armenians appreciate the financial support of the European Union to Armenia. And 66 Armenians believe that this support is effective. Of course, for us what is important is that still 33% believe that this support is not effective enough. But the very fact that 66% of Armenians believe that what we do is effective is something which we take as a recognition of our work. 53% of Armenians believe that the European Union provides tangible benefits to citizens in their everyday life. 55% believe that the European Union is committed to fighting corruption in Armenia. These are just a few figures. We will be having an important visit at the end of the week. Deputy Director General of DG NIA, Mrs. Maternova, will be coming. She will be having a meeting with the press community. So you will be given another opportunity to discuss these figures and to inquire about this survey in more detail. But what I wanted to say today now is that we are very grateful to the Armenian people for the fact that they appreciate, they understand, and they know about the work we are doing. For us, the objective of making the life, everyday life of ordinary Armenians easier is the primary motivation of our engagement. This is what we want to do. And for us, their perception of our work is the most important point of reference. Vox populi, vox Dei. The voice of Armenian people is decisive. As long as the Armenian people believe that they need us here, as long as they appreciate what we are doing here, we will be committed to continue our engagement. So that's for a start, a very good start. As I said, there are elements in this survey which point out to the weaknesses of our activities, and we take them very seriously. It is something what we will be analyzing and we will be taking into account in our future activities. The most important is the dynamics that in the recent years, in particular, when I'm here in Armenia, we are going upwards in this positive assessment. Now, concerning your question, indeed, from the 1st of June, the new agreement is in provisional application. We have had a number of very important events. The first session of the Partnership Council, as you know from the media reports, a very friendly, a very warm discussion with some important signals, because also from the Armenian side, there were other events, including the meetings at the highest level between the leaders of Armenia and the leaders of the European Union. Process in the European Union member states is proceeding well. As you know, the number of countries who have ratified the agreement is growing steadily. The European Parliament voted overwhelmingly in favor of the agreement, which I believe is a very strong signal from Europe concerning the will to work with Armenia in the implementation of the agreement. I stop here because I'm losing the voice. Give me a chance to clear my throat. Okay, go ahead.
Գտակ, եթե կարելի է մեր գործընկերների համար նաև հստակեցնենք այն հարցման արդյունքները, որոնք դուք մեջ վերեցիք, կարող ենք տեղեկանալ որքան մարդկանց շրջանակում է իրականացվել եւ որ պերիոդում, որ փուլում։
I don't have with me the exact figures. What I can read is that the annual survey was carried out in Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, the Republic of Moldova, and Ukraine in March 2018 via 6,000 face-to-face interviews, 1,000 per country. So 1,000 Armenians were interviewed on the face-to-face basis. As I said, if you want to know something more, there will be an opportunity next Friday, this coming Friday. Do we know the exact hour? Around 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And Mrs. Martenova will be very happy to discuss with you every individual aspect of the study. Armenia looks very well at the background of other countries. These positives are higher than the regional average.
Նաիրա Բադալյան, Արմինֆո, պարոն Սվիտալսկի, մենք տեղյակ ենք, որ այս տարի հունիսին Եվրամիությունը սկսել է որոշակի փոփոխություններ իրականացնել այդ Շենգեն վիզայի տրամադրման գործընթացներում։ Այդ թվում նաև անվտանգության նկատառումներից ելնելով, այնտեղ ասում են, որ նաև հնարավոր է Շենգեն վիզայի այդ գների բարձրացում, իսկ պարզեցված կարգով վիզաներին, եթե այն դեպքում 60-ից 80 է, պարզեցված կարգը նախատեսում է նաև 30-ից 40 եվրոյի հասցնել վիզայի տրամադրումը։ Դա Հայաստանի կվերաբերի Հայաստանի քաղաքացիների վերականդրադառնան այդ փոփոխությունները եւ արդյոք նախատեսվում է վիզայի տրամադրման քաղաքականության խստացում հենց Հայաստանի քաղաքացիների համար։ Շնորհակալություն։
First of all, indeed, a discussion has started on the question of amending the Schengen border code. The ambassadors of the European Union approved the mandate for negotiations, but the negotiations are ongoing, which means no decision has been taken concerning any change to the Schengen code. There is a proposal, and I believe that you refer to a proposal which is under discussion. It is not yet been adopted. The proposal has to be harmonized with the position of the EU Commission. The EU Commission is looking at the proposal. It has 6 months to take a view. I will not now comment upon it because we are still far from any phase. The background of this is, of course, well known to you. It is because of the strong migration pressure, and I think everybody, also in Armenia, has deep understanding that the Europeans have to look how to protect the borders, how to introduce elements of the protective regime which would give them better control of the movement of the people. Armenia, as you know, is enjoying this status of being in the visa facilitation mode. The figures that you referred do not apply to countries who benefit from visa facilitation. So there will be no change in the practices, and also I believe in the fees charged, which are reduced charge, which are simply part of the visa facilitation arrangement with Armenia. Visa facilitation arrangement will not be changed.
Պարոն դեսպան, անցած շաբաթ կայացավ Հայաստանի կառավարության ղեկավարի Նիկոլ Փաշինյանի առաջին այցը Եվրոպա, որտեղ նա Բրյուսելում ՆԱՏՕ-ի գագաթնաժողովի շրջանակներում ունեցավ հանդիպումներ, հանդես եկավ հայտարարություններով, ինչպես կգնահատեք այդ այցը եւ այդ ընթացքում եւ նաեւ դրանից հետո հնչած հայտարարությունները։
Indeed, the Prime Minister of Armenia, during his trip to Brussels, had meetings with the top leaders, the top officials of the European Union, the President of the European Council, the President of the European Commission, and the Vice President of the European Commission, the High Representative for Foreign Policy. The message sent by the leaders of the European Union, the top officials of the European Union, was very clear that the European Union welcomes the change which has occurred in Armenia and is ready to support the course of reforms. These are very clear and I think very strong and very friendly messages. that were passed to the Prime Minister of Armenia at all the meetings. I understand that the Prime Minister had the opportunity to convey his messages to the leaders of the European Union. We will be here in Armenia in a very constructive mood to transfer this declaration of support into concrete action. My duty as the EU ambassador is to see how we can support in real terms through concrete action the reform course of the Armenian government.
Շնորհակալություն, ես ավարտեմ Նիկոլ Փաշինյանը նաև իր բրիֆինգի ընթացքում օդանավակայանում նշեց, որ իր համար որոշակիորեն տարակուսելի է, որ քաղաքականության փոփոխություն չի եղել եւ նշեց, որ այդ ոգևորիչ տոնայնությամբ հայտարարությունները կամ պետք է փոխվեն կամ աջակցությունը եւս պետք է լինի համարժեք հեղափոխությունից հետո հնչած ոգևորիչ հայտարարություններին։ Նա նաև հաջորդ օրը գրառմամբ հանդես եկավ նշելով, որ ժողովրդավարական Հայաստանը ավելի լուրջ մոտեցում է ակնկալում։ Այդ առնչությամբ ինչպիսին է ձեր մեկնաբանությունը։
We are very open to hear the expectations of the Armenian government. As you know, I have been meeting the representatives of the governments in particular, and at every meeting we ask a very simple question. How can we help? What do you expect from us? This is something which we are very determined to continue. We would like to hear from the Armenian partners concrete ideas. In what form, in what way the European Union can be helpful. In some ministries, we have already received some preliminary ideas. We would like to have a comprehensive view. And when we have this view, we will discuss how we can help. What we have heard from the Armenian government is that they expect institutional, technical, and financial support. In order to move forward, we need to receive very concrete ideas, very concrete. The European Union is very constructive. We understand that the new government needed time. Most ministers are very new in a government job. They have to assess, they have to consider what is the best for Armenia. So we understand that this process takes time. But I can tell you, as before, also after the meetings in Brussels, we as the European Union here in Armenia, we are in a very constructive mode. The visit of Director General Maternova serves also this purpose. It's another visit from Brussels, a very working visit. She will be meeting several ministers, civil society and other representatives, including financial institutions, including other donors of Armenia, to discuss the expectations and the needs. This must be a very concrete discussion. Projects, timelines, budgets, and so on and so forth. When we have it on the table, we can discuss it.
Խնդրեմ արտակ ազատությունից։
Պարոն դեսպան, ես ուզում եմ շարունակել հարցը Հայաստանի վարչապետի հայտարարությունների վերաբերյալ։ Բրյուսելյան այցի ավարտին նշված ասուլիսում Հայաստանի վարչապետը ասաց, որ ինքը լսել է հաջողություններ իր եւ Հայաստանի հասցեին, բայց էական փոփոխություններ չկան եւ իրավիճակը նույնն է, ինչ 3 ամիս առաջ, 4 ամիս առաջ, այսինքն մինչեւ Հայաստանում տեղի ունեցած հեղափոխությունը։ Արդյոք սա չի հակասում ձեր այն պնդմանը, որ դուք աջակցում եք Հայաստանում տեղի ունեցած փոփոխությունները եւ պատրաստ եք օժանդակել։ Սա առաջին հարցը չէ։
I believe that the warm statements, the friendly statements made by the European Union, including the top officials, they are meant seriously. They are linked to a very constructive attitude towards the expectations of Armenia. And in particular, the expectations of the ordinary people of Armenia, because our primary goal is to help the ordinary citizens of Armenia in their daily lives. That's our mission here. So, as I said, we have to receive concrete ideas from the Armenian counterparts and discuss together how these ideas can be advanced and implemented. This must be a very concrete discussion. Concerning the tools that you are referring to, we operate within a certain framework as the European Union. The European Union is a very complex organization. True. Probably for some people it's very difficult to understand how we operate. Maybe you'll need some briefing too. This Saturday, this week, we are organizing a special seminar for the officials of Armenia, new deputy ministers, directors, representatives of various organizations, to help them understand how the European Union works and what are the possibilities for very concrete support from the European Union. Now, the framework which we operate, for you to understand, the legal and political basis of our relations is the SEPA and the partnership priorities. We are very open. If the Armenian side believes that these documents have to be augmented, have to show a new quality, we need concrete ideas. What they would like to be changed in our policy. Concretely. The political agenda of the relations is defined by the document called Partnership Priorities, which was negotiated before the April events. We understand the new government may have some ideas how to change this document. And we are ready to look at these ideas. On our side, there is full openness to listen to the ideas. What would you like to change in our relationship? But I understand that what we hear from the Armenian side is that there is no change in the Armenian policy towards the European Union. What you are saying now is that this no change in the Armenian policy to the European Union should result in the change of the European Union policy towards Armenia. Can you explain to me how to combine the two? On a serious note, we need concrete ideas, we need concrete expectations, and we are ready to discuss. A few words about the financial instruments, because I understand this might be also of interest to you. As you know, the European Union works on a long-term basis. Our financial instruments, including the instruments which we offer to Armenia, are defined once in 7 years through the multi-annual financial framework. The current multi-annual financial framework expires in 2020. And some of you who follow the discussions in Brussels, you know that a discussion, serious discussion, has started now in Brussels, which will be always a very tough discussion on the new so-called MFF, multi-annual financial framework. So 7 years. Now it's an opportunity to look at the structural elements of this multi-annual financial framework and also to discuss the figures. Now, the multi-annual financial framework is composed of different financial instruments. For Armenia, what is important, at least so far in the current multi-annual financial framework, was the so-called neighborhood instrument. It's where the money for Armenia is coming from. This 7-year period is always divided into 2 sub-periods, which we call single support framework. Last April, still before the events in Armenia, the single support framework for Armenia for years 2017-2020 was adopted. And here's where we stand. This is very transparent. There is nothing secret about it. What is important is that this single support framework provides for the increase in the support to Armenia by 25%. And I think this is something what Armenians appreciate. That most donors also working in Armenia reduce their commitment to development of Armenia, the European Union is increasing by 25%. 25%. I will ask you, all of you, how much you believe is enough. But this increase is very significant. The European Union already now, together with member states, is the biggest donor to Armenia. We provide more than 50% of all external assistance. And this survey shows that Armenians know it, and they appreciate it. So, this discussion about expectations, needs, possibilities, at some point will have to take a very concrete shape. Now, that's not the end, how we work. Because this single support framework is then divided into annual action plans. You remember from my previous press contacts that I said that, yes, we have advanced with the previous government significantly discussions on annual action plan 2018 and 2019. But the new government has a total control of this process now because it hasn't been finalized. So we are expecting very concrete ideas how these annual action plans, in particular Action Plan 18, can be filled with the substance which would match the reform agenda and the expectations of the Armenian side. Indeed, believe me, and you know that I am a very sincere person, I always tell you the truth. We, all the people who work on Armenia, are full steam waiting for the concrete ideas of the Armenian site. And this is annual action plan in its size is unprecedented because it will exceed 50 million euros. This is something for our Armenian partners and international partners of a big challenge because you must absorb the money through good projects. The absorption capacity is something we should always remember, in particular when you have such a big increase in the financial envelope. Okay, I stop here simply to explain that the European Union works through sometimes complicated procedures. We have budgets, we have decision-making requirements, but there is a lot of flexibility which would allow to modify what we have advanced with the previous government in order to suit the new government. Believe me. And there is a lot of political will to do it. Believe me.
Yeah. Երկրորդ հարցը, պարոն դեսպան, անցած տարի, երբ Հայաստանում ընտրական օրենսգիր փոփոխություններն էին քննարկվում, դուք անձնապես ներգրավված էիք եւ հաջող ցուցաբերեց Եվրամիությունը բավականին մեծ չափով։ Հիմա կրկին քննարկվում են։ Արդյոք դուք նույն կերպ պատրաստվում եք աջակցել եւ արտադրել եք համաձայնություններ, գուցե քննարկումներ այդ հարցի շուրջ։
Thank you. What the top officials of the European Union told the Prime Minister of Armenia is that we are ready to support the next elections. Of course, the discussions on the electoral code and the expectations, again, concerning our support will be decided in a sovereign way by the Armenian side. We are waiting for the outcome of these discussions. We have started preliminary with the Armenian government, but also among international community, potential donors. We as the European Union, we are committed to provide a sizable support to the next elections. But as I said, first, we are waiting for the outcome of the internal discussions, both inside the government. There is an intergovernmental working group, I understand, and also the discussions in the parliament. There is an inter-party group discussing the electoral code. And then we need simply a message how we can support. This is for us not an easy task because we understand snap elections will not be taking place far away. So for us to organize, to mobilize the financial support in particular, bearing in mind that we work through time-consuming procedures, is quite a challenge. But I can tell you, me and my colleagues in the delegation are very determined to fulfill the promises made by the top officials of the European Union. We will be ready to help.
Կալություն, խնդրեմ։
Արմենուն Վարդանյան, Կալա հեռուստաընկերություն։ Ես երկու հարց ունեմ, մեկը պարոն դեսպան, դուք ձեր խոսքում մի քանի անգամ նշեցիք, որ սպասում են խաղափարների, որ խաղափարը պետք է լինի, եւ մեկ անգամ ակնարկեցիք, որ կառավարության այս թիմը շատ երիտասարդ են ու անփորձ, արդյոք սա կարող ենք համարել թերահավատության, այսպես ասեմ, դրսևորում այն առումով, որ երիտասարդ են ու գուցե չկարողանան հուլիսի գաղափարներ առաջ քաշել, որ իրենք պատրաստ լինեն։ Արդյոք թերահավատություն հայտնեցիք դրա, որ նշեցիք երիտասարդ են, եւ երկրորդ հարցը։ Նիկոլ Փաշինյանը նշեց, որ հակակոռուպցիոն պայքարի շրջանակներում արդեն բավականին խոշոր չափի գումարել վերադարձվել բյուջե եւ նաեւ արտադրություն թույլատրեց, որ եթե ինչ-որ մեկին հաղթակ 10 միլիոն եվրո գտածի, չունեք մտավախություն, որ այդ եվրոների, միլիոնավոր եվրոների մեջ նաեւ միության համիլասների չազգային կառույցների երկրորդ այսինքն ձեզանից ստացած ձեր կողմից տրված ներդրումակցությունները որ հյուրացնել են միլիոններ
I can tell you that from every meeting I have with your new ministers, I am leaving with a lot of energy and optimism, because I'm meeting people who are very sincere and they are very committed to bring about the change. Some of them indeed have no experience working for government in any capacity, and as we know, it's quite a complicated business. But 2 months in the jobs, I can say they are very committed and very energetic. So I am not skeptical, quite the contrary, because I can see a lot of young people everywhere who are now speaking up, who are thinking about the future of the country. And we believe that this energy will find a good result. We as the European Union, as I told you, we are in a very constructive mood. We are ready to help. But of course, they run the country. They have to make the choices, what they want to do, not us. What we can do is to share the European experience. We have a number of suggestions how to bring the good experience from Europe to help the new team. We are ready to start new technical assistance programs. We are ready to commit ourselves to new projects, new big projects, and so on and so forth. So I am optimistic. I'm optimistic. Concerning your question about the European millions, I mentioned that 55% of Armenians believe that the European Union is committed to fight corruption. It's a very important figure. But let me use your question to recapitulate once again what we as the European Union have been doing in Armenia in order to fight corruption or eliminate or reduce the impact of practices. First of all, and this, nobody has been more vocal of all international partners of Armenia concerning the fight corruption than the European Union. And I wanted to thank you because it was thanks to your questions, your interviews, your publications, that we had the possibility to communicate our concerns, our messages. And you can check in your archives how often the European Union and me personally was speaking about the corruption risks in Armenia. Can you mention any other foreign name in Armenia who has been so vocal? I buy you a beer. On the serious note, we were the only organization, international donor, who in 2017 financed a public campaign against corruption. It was running even in Yerevan. We would, of course, prefer that this campaign would take a big size, magnitude all cities and villages of Armenia, it was not possible, not because of us. And you know it. We financed several projects, including competition of posters against corruption. We financed the development by 2 more guys, 2 more children, a game, video game against corruption, and so on and so forth. Long list. Secondly, as you know, the European Union has been the most stringent in disclosing corruption practices involving our money. Thanks to our anti-corruption service, OLAF, corruption or embezzlement cases, to be precise, were discovered. 30 projects were put to the court examination involving EU money. And it was the European Union who was behind these cases as the investigative force. We discovered these embezzlements, we, the European Union. I cannot remember of any other international donor of Armenia who has been so stringent in investigating these cases and so public, transparent about it. We never tried to hide that some of our projects, some of our money were embezzled. The third to stress, we were probably the only donor of Armenia which included in our cooperation programs anti-corruption benchmarks. Several of them. And some of them were implemented. Like, for instance, the legislation of whistleblower protection. That was something what the European Union insisted on. The establishment of independent anti-corruption agency. This is something what the European Union was pushing for. The previous governments of Armenia were trying to tell us that the anti-corruption commission which existed at the Prime Minister office was independent enough to fulfill the benchmarks. We refused. We were the donors, unlike some others, who refused to finance the previously existing anti-corruption commission chaired by the previous prime ministers, because we didn't consider them independent. And we were very clear about it. Only the new agency, which now the new government wants to develop and establish as a comprehensive agency, is the agencies that we advocated for many, many years. And finally, because there is a big misunderstanding how this money of the European Union is channeled. We do not give money, and in particular, we do not give money to the government. We finance projects, we conclude contracts. Something very interesting happened in the last years, at least when I'm here. The annual action plan 2017 contains no project which previously was called budget support. What is budget support? Budget support is when the European Union transfers money directly to the treasury of the government in exchange for concrete action. And yet we decided in 2017 to discontinue this practice. I can tell you even more, that annual action plan 2018 and 2019, which we started to discuss with the previous government, did not contain any similar provision of direct budget support. I leave it to you to speculate why. But I can tell you that at least Action Plan 17, 18, and 19 originally were supposed not to contain any single penny to go directly to the treasury of the government. It would go to our partners, development agencies, Armenian partners, including non-governmental organizations, but not to the government. And guess why? And Armenians, and this survey shows that Armenians know the answer, because 55% of them believe that we were a force against corruption in this country. Thank you. We stop here.
Լավ, խնդրեմ ներկայացեք։ Խոսեք։
Էմիլ Դանիելյան, ազատություն ԶՊ-ն,
Կխնդրեմ հայերեն ամեն դեպքում, որ նաև լսում են on-line։
Եթե հայրենությունը ցանկանում է Եվրամիությունը ամենացնի, ապա պետք է ներկայացնի շատ կոնկրետ առարկաներ, առանց այդ գաղափարների առաջարկների դրացուցիչ օգնություն ստանալ չի ստացվել։
The message is very simple, that we are in a very constructive attitude, which means that we are ready to consider all proposals, all expectations, all formulation of the needs of the current government. But we have to consider the issues within the existing framework of the budgetary and planning purposes. I can tell you, and probably you do not know, that all the documents I refer to, like annual action plan and single support framework, they have to receive the agreement of member states and the European Parliament. We cannot make empty promises, but we are ready to discuss in very concrete terms how to meet the expectations of the Armenian side. I mentioned Annual Action Plan 18, which for us is a very concrete task to decide on the size and the contents, meaning the priorities, where we go, what we do, and how. We advanced it very much with the previous government, but it's not yet concluded. So the new government has every possibility to discuss with the European Union the expectations within the framework of Annual Action Plan 18. But we are ready immediately to provide for the continuity, because we may expect that some of the projects will take time. Annual Action Plan 19, and you have a stable perspective till 2020. Which means we know more or less what are the funds available till the end of the current multi-annual financial framework. We cannot discuss expectations in needs beyond 2020. That's what that we have to have a discussing budgets frameworks. We cannot give empty promises, but I can tell you, and the delegation which is coming this week, and my team, we are ready to discuss, to hear concretely. But these very lofty, very high languages will always have to be translated into very pedestrian things, figures, zeros, and projects. And this is my message. We are very constructive to do it. Yes.
Before you can expect any extra funding.
Արդեն ասած, շնորհակալություն, խնդրեմ եւ ներողություն եմ խնդրում ընդմիջելու համար եւ եւս մեկ հարց ձեզ ու արդեն կամփոփենք։
վարչապետ
To
Նիկոլ
the
Հերոստանգերից։
microphone, because the interpreter, our wonderful one and only Christina, cannot hear you.
Cheers.
Վարչապետ Նիկոլ Փաշինյանը երեք հայտնեց, որ Ադրբեջանը ամեն վայրկյանի կարող է սադրանքների գնալ։ Ինչ եք կարծում, արդյոք սա տարածաշրջանի ժողովրդավարությանը դեմ չի լինի, չի խախտի ժողովրդավարությունը, ինչպես ժողովրդավարությունը։
We take very seriously such words and assessments, and we believe that everything should be done in order to prevent the escalation of tension and conflagration. We are doing what we can as the European Union. We support the activities of the Minsk Group co-chair. I understand there was a first contact between the two foreign ministers in Brussels. What I can tell you is and confirm that the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh figured very prominently on the agenda of the meetings that the top officials of the European Union had with the Prime Minister of Armenia. We heard the concerns, and we will be doing what we can in order to pass the message of moderation and calm. We do not need a new tension in this region, in particular in the context of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And this is something what is very clear from the statements of the top officials of the European Union, and I believe this message has been also communicated to the leaders of Azerbaijan.
Գործակալությունը ճշտի ֆինանսավորման հետ կապված 19-20 թվականներին ինչքան է ակնկալվում տրամադրել Հայաստանի ֆինանսական օգնության ծրագրերի համար, 7-ամյա ծրագրի համար կան նախնական ակնկալիքներ Հայաստանի ինչքան կարող է ստանալ եւ ինչքան ավելացնել այդ բյուջեն։ Դուք հանուր նախորդ 7 տարվա բյուջեն։
I don't have the figures and I don't want to mislead you, but we can prepare for you a special sheet with all the figures. But the current single support framework, as I said, before the revolution in Armenia, speaks about 100 to 160 current period till 2020, which is a 25% increase. But that's not everything that Armenia can receive and absorb, because there are other channels which we use. Financial instruments, I don't want to time, but if you are interested, prepare Mrs. Maternova on Friday, all the things. So this is the framework within which we operate. This flexibilities, because even with the current single support framework, we say between 140 and 160, which means that if we are unable to commit the money to good projects, we return the money, we decommit the money, we return the money to the EU budget, and then it goes back to member states, to European taxpayers, because what we are talking about is European Union taxpayers' money. the European Union does not generate money, collect money from European Union taxpayers. And this is a very important issue, because at the end of the day, we have to explain to the European Union taxpayers' money that this development assistance is money well spent, that it is of European taxpayers' money. Sometimes, and you know it if you follow the discussions, and they will be even more intense now when we discuss the new multi-annual financial framework. They will ask, why should we spend in all these faraway regions? For instance, a peasant from Stara Zagora may ask, I have a bad road here. I'm driving on a bad road to Stara Zagora every day. Why should I give my money to fix a road in Georgia or in Armenia where I will never drive my car? This is, of course, demagoguery. But the European Union is a very democratic organization. We have to understand that the very last day, we will have to explain to European taxpayers why we are doing this, why it is good for the European Union to fix a road in Armenia or to fix a landfill to save Yerevani citizens from the smell of Nubarasha. Because, as you know, the new landfill in Yerevan will be built on the European Union taxpayers' money. But we will manage this demagoguery, don't worry, in Europe. We will prove that money in Armenia is well spent. And this survey that I referred at the beginning, this level of appreciation by Armenians is for us a good argument. Look, we think which understand, appreciate, and never impose ourselves. Our general policy, and I have repeated it many times, we never impose ourselves. Even here, I can tell you, we being the biggest donor, when we meet with the donor community, we always ask, are you ready to do it? Are you ready to do this or that? If you find another guy ready to provide support, we say, okay. And I believe that this is something which makes us valuable. I can tell you, the last weekend I went to Urtsadzor. We finished a project there. Not a big project by our standards, maybe 500,000. But I could see the gratitude of the villagers from Urtsadzor, that someone tried to bring life. Of course, if you find another partner to do it, we will not feel any grudge. I went to the diplomatic school. Initially, we were asked to provide a kind of startup, kickoff support to the diplomatic school of Armenia. We thought that they would find other donors, they would find money in Armenia to support them in the activities. But it turned out that nobody wanted to fill the gap. So we had to provide so-called bridge funding as the European Union. Why? Because nobody else wanted to do it. And I had a discussion now with the director of the Diplomatic Academy. We have to find a new format, a new facility. We suggested twinning facility with the diplomatic school, because we will never abandon. If we see the gratitude, if we see that nobody else is coming, yes. And I can continue and continue these examples, which I personally have days. People feel this is for us the motivation. This is what drives, what makes me moving and being optimistic.